The oldest chemical recipe in human history doesn't describe a weapon or a medicine. It describes soap. And over the next 4,800 years, this simple mixture of fat and ash will save more lives than any weapon ever invented. The year is 2800 BCE. In ancient Babylon, someone presses wedge-shaped marks into a wet clay tablet. It's a set of instructions. Boil fat together with wood ash, then add water. The result is a thick, soapy paste. The world's first written formula for clean. The Sumerians didn't stumble on this by accident. They worked wife wool, and they needed a way to strip the grease out of it before dyeing. They found that ash-mixed wife animal fat created a substance that dissolved dirt like nothing else. It was one of the first chemical reactions a human being deliberately carried out and wrote down. 300 years later, another tablet describes someone using soap to wash skin marked by disease. Soap is no longer just for cloth. Now it's for people. Now, quietly, it has started to heal. The Egyptians were combining animal fats with alkaline ash by 1550 BCE. The Gauls and the Germanic tribes used soap to dye their hair a fiery red. The Greeks and Romans knew it too, though they preferred to rub themselves with oil and then scrape the grime away with a metal tool called a strigil. But the real revolution came from Aleppo, the Syrian city that, in the 8th century, began making soap from olive oil and laurel oil. Hard, gentle, fragrant. The first soap that didn't punish your skin. A recipe that would survive more than 1,200 years, almost completely unchanged. When the Crusaders returned from the Middle East, they brought Aleppo soap home with them, and Europe falls in love. Spanish Castile creates its own version made from pure olive oil. Marseille, Venice, Genoa. One city after another builds soap-making workshops. Soapmakers' guilds had appeared in Naples as early as the 6th century. And then comes a catastrophe that throws Europe back by centuries. The Black Death. From 1347, the plague chokes the continent. People die by the millions, and someone arrives at the single worst idea in the history of hygiene. But before you find out how one belief erased centuries of progress, let's pause for a moment on what happened to the simple act of bathing. Doctors begin to claim that hot water opens the pores of the skin, and that through those open pores, disease creeps into the body. Public bathhouses, once the very center of social life, are shut down. Washing yourself becomes dangerous. Europe chooses dirt. For the next few centuries, people wash their clothes instead of their bodies. A clean white linen shirt, changed often, was believed to soak up the dirt from your skin. King Louis XIV, ruler of the most powerful nation in Europe, supposedly bathed just 3 times in his entire life. Soap existed, but nobody wanted it. It wasn't until the 18th century that bathing slowly came back into fashion. But soap was still expensive. It was made by hand, in small batches, and its key ingredient, soda from wood ash, was hard to come by. In 1791, a French chemist named Nicolas Leblanc worked out how to make soda from ordinary table salt. It was a breakthrough. Suddenly soap could be produced cheaply, on a massive scale, for everyone. But Leblanc's story ends in tragedy. The French Revolution seizes his factory. Napoleon hands it back 15 years later, but by then it's far too late. Ruined and forgotten, Leblanc takes his own life in 1806. His invention will change millions of lives, but he will never live to see it. Half a century later, another man would pay an even higher price in the fight for cleanliness. Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian doctor working in a Vienna hospital, notices a terrifying pattern. In the wards staffed by medical students, women are dying of childbed fever 5 times more often than in the ward next door. Semmelweis finds the cause. The students come straight from the dissecting room without washing their hands. In 1847, he orders mandatory hand washing in a chlorine solution. The death rate plummets from 12% to 2%. The medical establishment reacts with fury. They call him a madman. Germ theory doesn't exist yet, and Semmelweis can't explain why soap and disinfection actually work. Cast out of the hospital and broken, he's committed to an asylum, where he dies in 1865. He was 47 years old. It would take another 20 years for Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch to prove that germs were real. Semmelweis had been right all along. Plain soap and water could have saved thousands of women, and the world destroyed him for saying so. By the end of the 19th century, soap finally becomes a mass-market product. Companies like Procter, Gamble, and Lever Brothers build empires on simple bars of soap. The first great advertising campaigns appear. Ivory soap sells itself as "so pure it floats." Pears prints posters of children in the bath. Hygiene stops being a luxury and becomes a social duty. In the 20th century, synthetic detergents almost push traditional soap aside. But when the world freezes in the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020, doctors repeat a single sentence: wash your hands with soap for 20 seconds. Not hand sanitizer, soap, because soap shatters the fatty shell of the virus more effectively than anything else. Think about that D next time you turn on the tap and reach for a bar of soap. You're holding a recipe older than the pyramids, an invention 2 men paid for with their lives, and a substance that, in the middle of a pandemic, proved more powerful than the most advanced medicine on Earth. If you'd like more stories like this one, subscribe. Every week we uncover the secrets of the objects you use every day. Because soap isn't just a bar by the sink. It's 4,800 years of human struggle against dirt, disease, and ignorance. And it's proof that the simplest solutions are sometimes the ones that matter most.